All right, welcome to this briefing on the Circular Cars Initiative and the race to zero carbon mobility. I'm Levi Tilleman. I lead the World Economic Forum's Circular Cars Initiative. Just a few years ago, there was a lot of debate about what the car of the future would indeed look like. Today, that picture is coming into ever sharper focus. Going forward, cars must not only be electric, but circular. The Circular Cars Initiative is a joint effort by the World Economic Forum, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, EIT Climate Kick, Systemic, Accenture Strategy, and McKinsey & Co., as well as a community of stakeholders from up and down the automobility value chain. Since our kickoff in January, the Circular Cars Initiative has grown into a diverse community of leaders in sustainability from around the automobility ecosystem. That is one of the elements that is so special about this community, its diversity. We have harnessed the insights of our auto manufacturers, materials companies, mobility as a service providers, and various industry analysts to capture a unique and a holistic perspective on the transition towards a zero carbon automobile. Today, we've invited a group of experts on automotive circularity to explain the what, the why, and the how of circular cars. I'm going to introduce them briefly. Let's start with Alexander Holst, Managing Director for Sustainability and Utility Strategy at Accenture Strategy. Alexander, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Levi. The last months were very exciting indeed, working with the diverse group of companies and bringing the insight all the way to this point today.
Fantastic. Alexander, your team has done great work clarifying what circularity means within an automotive context. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Levi. And the work, when we started, we basically had two sort of steps to do, and we came up with one key results. Now, what we did in the beginning was widening the discussion, opening up what circular business means in the automotive industry. Because obviously, this industry has been doing parts of circularity, e.g. recycling, e.g. remanufacturing for decades, right? The singular topic wasn't really new for that industry. Now, but we wanted to widen it, not just for the production side or recycling, but also the use phase business model, so material aspects as well as business model aspects. And then the second step was to close that discussion to a definition. What does a circular car looks like, as you mentioned in the beginning of your introduction? Now, what we want to propose today is a taxonomy, a 5-level taxonomy to guide the progress to a circular cars. This taxonomy, in our view, is intended to establish a common understanding of the level of circularity of a car and how it can be improved. To get a common understanding of discussion when we talk about what a circular car might look like. And this is very relevant and rather urgent for the industry and for all the ecosystem partners of the automotive industry because, well, the targets on CO2 say 50% reduction in absolute numbers by 2030 to hit 1.5 degree. Now, in that same period, everyone expects the car-based mobility to increase, and not just a little bit to increase, but actually to increase 70% globally. And that in the context of a 50% need of absolute reduction, I think surely emphasize the need for action now, as we all know that changes in the automotive industry are not taking place from one day to another. There's an entire supply chain, entire planning process, production processes that might need to be changed. Now, let me give you 2-3 examples of what level 1 or level 3 or level 5 really means. Level 1, that's what we are seeing today. The car industry is operating at that level, slowly but surely increasing circularity through silent optimization, such as switching to renewable energy, for example, in vehicle assembly. That is the scope 2 emission discussion that many car makers have been tackling for over the last years. Level 3, for example, looks at the full life cycle of a vehicle that needs to be optimized. together maybe with better aligned incentives through the business model shift, especially fleet-based ones. We see that that could be more broadly reached by 2030. Now, on level 4, the full value chain will be optimized, e.g. with high-value recycling and purpose-built vehicles. Also likely for this, the vehicles are operating in an as-a-service model. This could be the case around for many vehicles by 2035. And we all know and appreciate that topics such as autonomous driving are not coming or might not be coming as far as we maybe have thought 5 years ago. On level 5, that can be achieved through an optimization of the whole mobility system, even envisioning, which is a true vision, that using or making being mobile actually contributes positively to this planet, even in an environmental sense. So being net positive impact. What a vision that could be. Now, to the question of how we measure this type of progress. We would measure it to support a quantitative assessment. Can you go back one slide, please? Thank you. We would measure this as a quantitative assessment of the circularity progress of a car. We propose 2 outcome-oriented measures. The first is carbon efficiency, where we all look at it today. Carbon, the key focus. But circularity is not just about carbon. It is about resource efficiency, and that would be our second measurement. Carbon efficiency, we measure by dividing the life cycle greenhouse gas emission, equivalent, of course, by passenger kilometers driven during the life cycle. Life cycle emissions include both CO2 linked to the product, like CO2 from materials, component productions, assembly, and of life management, as well as CO2 from the use phase, like the classical tailpipe emission and emission from the provision of energy, such as fuel or electricity. Now, passenger kilometer per life cycle is the product of the average vehicle occupancy rate and the kilometer driven over the life cycle. The other piece, the resource efficiency, is measured by dividing non-circular resource consumption per passenger kilometers. What do we mean by non-circular resource consumption? Well, this considers the material that is in the car, including replacement components, during the life cycle, and material scrapped from production. In a simplified way, we define non-circular resource consumption as inflow and outflow that are not remanufactured or recycled. Well, as you see on those 2 lines, as the progression of those 2 curves show, carbon efficiency will initially decrease more rapidly, caused by the switch from internal combustion engine to an electric battery. Decarbonizing, of course, the tailpipe emissions along with the electricity grid decarbonization. You have that free flow. From then on, both outcomes measures follow a relatively similar path, as a major amount of the CO2 emissions can be avoided by replacing virgin materials with recycled or remanufactured ones. So what are these pathways to take for that transition?
And Alexander, I'm going to urge you to
yes,
go
absolutely.
swiftly through this next slide.
Absolutely, I will do very much, Levi. Now, what are we seeing here is, of course, 4 pathways on the 2 trends, the usage transformation on the top and the product transformation on the very right, and the energy, material, lifetime, and utilization. And the key point is that these optimization pathways are all connected to each other to a certain degree. And that, I believe, sort of really emphasize the need for the various 4 pathways, whether it's the energy, the material, and pathways that we need to go through. And back to you, Levi.
Great, thank you very much, Alexander. And as you know, I'm a big fan of your team and the analysis that you've done as part of the Circular Cars initiative. We're a little over time, but I just want to ask you one quick question, which is, were there any conclusions that you came to as part of your research here that were surprising?
Well, maybe in hindsight, you would say, well, that's not really surprising. But when you go through the analysis, you found surprising that how much of the different solutions that we all talk about, whether it's the material pieces, whether it's the business model pieces, that are truly interlinked. and that they are combined different solutions, substantial synergies can be generated. I'll give you just an example. We all know the as a service model of vehicles, e.g. subscription-based ownership, provide an incentive for the lifetime improvement. Now, on a normal car, that would basically just mean maybe over maybe a 10, 20-year lifetime, that car, it may be run out of lifetime after 2-3 years if it is being utilized 80-90% of the time instead of 3-4-5. But if you then change the materials, the way the car is constructed, you could actually increase the lifetime of that. So that is the interlinked of those solutions. That is really surprising.
Great. Well, thank you very much for those opening comments, Alexander, and I'm sure we'll hear more from you in Q&A.